Hi, I'm John Walter, and this is my case study for EDL 850 School Law. So let's talk a little bit about the facts of this case and what we know. What we know is that there are limited funds available for technology at St. Regis School. There were several teachers who approached Miss Lynn, the library media specialist, about copying newly purchased software for computers and installing them on their classroom computers to give more software access to students. Miss Brandon, a third grade teacher who's new to the school district, expressed concern to Mrs. Lynn that copying the software was a copyright violation and ultimately informed Mr. Sample, St. Regis School's principal. Miss Lynn dismissed the concerns of both Mrs. Brandon and Mr. Sample and indicated that the school needs to save money and stretch their resources, and even that the parent-teacher organization president, Miss Evans, is aware of the practice and actually was in with her and helped create the copies. Mr. Sample must maintain goodwill and balance the relationships of both the educators and community stakeholders of the school while ensuring compliance with the law. So, Section 2 is the legal and ethical issues. First, we have to consider if there was any harm done. The company who supplied the software has been financially harmed because they have lost revenue through the violation of their copyright when their software was copied by Mrs. Lynn. It likely violates existing laws. Ms. Lynn's decision to copy and distribute the software could be a violation of the 1976 U.S. Copyright Act. Additionally, it is most likely a breach of the contract. The software's terms of service also have likely been violated, as they probably indicate that the software should not be copied. And we have ethical considerations. While Miss Lynn is probably right that they won't ever get caught, that does not mean that it's ethically acceptable. This sets poor precedent and a slippery slope for additional ethical violations by school staff, and sets poor example for students, staff, and parents in the community. So, for a synthesized summary, Mr. Sample must communicate to several employees and one volunteer who are involved with the duplication and distribution of copyrighted software programs within their school their need to comply with the law, reduce the legal liability of the school, and adhere to high ethical standards while balancing and maintaining his relationships with all stakeholders. Section 4 are synthesized facts and what we know. So there are lots of people and stakeholders that are involved in this case. The first is Mr. Sample, the principal and decision maker. The second, Miss Lynn, the library media specialist, who made the copies and distributed the software to other teachers. Mrs. Williams, one of the teachers who openly accepted and installed the software. Mrs. Brandon, the teacher who reported the software and potential violation. Miss Evans, the parent-teacher organization president who helped Miss Lynn create the copies. The students who likely benefit from the additional software access. Other school staff who benefited or were aware of the duplication of software. The district superintendent who might have to become involved. The district council, the parent-teacher organization members, community stakeholders, as well as the software company. What we know about the place is that St. Regis School has 420 students and is a rural school that is located 25 miles from the nearest town. They have few community amenities and few businesses. The program at St. Regis School serves grades K through 8. There are 2 teachers per grade level and 2 special educations for the entire school, with one special ed teacher serving K through 4 and the second 4 through 8. And the program, because they have a lack of resources, they have 2 community fundraising events that are organized by the community and the parent-teacher organization. So, let's review and prioritize some of these facts. The biggest concern is complying with copyright laws and policies to avoid civil litigation from the software supplier, which would create additional and unnecessary financial burden for the school and the district. As professional educators, we also have an ethical responsibility to comply with laws and model appropriate use for our students, peers, and community. We have to consult the terms of service for the software to determine if a violation of copyright has actually occurred. Maybe the software licenses were not per computers, but per students, and the amount of students in the school falls below the number of students that would constitute a new or additional licenses. So we have to consult the terms of service for the software. Additionally, we have to analyze the current school districts and schools' acceptable use policy. We should likely consult with the district council about the legal liability of duplicating the software and any potential copyright violations. Additionally, we'll have to communicate about the laws and district policies to all of the stakeholders, which is the students, staff, parents, and community members. And then we have to implement a plan to address the specific issue of the duplicated software. So, the options and consequences that Mr. Sample can take. The first is no action. Mr. Sample can allow Ms. Lin to continue duplicating and distributing the softwares to teachers, which benefits students, but likely sets a dangerous precedent. Mr. Sample can take severe action and demand that all duplicated software be uninstalled and those who had knowledge of the practice be recommended for severe discipline, which could include their loss of their job or loss of licensure. But there is intermediate action that can be taken. Mr. Sample could work collaboratively to uninstall duplicated software, educate the stakeholders about the copyright laws, and develop policies for future use, and develop future fundraising events. So let's evaluate these options. Option 1 of doing nothing. The pros of this is that it allows for maximum use of software and saves the district money, and it won't harm the relationships with Mrs. Lin and other stakeholders who were involved in copying the software. The cons is that it establishes a dangerous precedent and slippery slope for other unethical and lawful behavior. Could it lead to the potential embezzlement of funds? Potentially. Additionally, it increases the risk of being sued, which would add additional financial burden to the school and school district. Option 2 is the severe action. The pros is that Mr. Sample could firmly put his foot down and demand that all of the software be removed, and he would be doing what is legally and ethically right and sets a future precedent. Additionally, it reduces Mr. Sample's legal liability on himself and the school. The cons is that taking a strong-arm approach creates a climate of fear and distrust amongst teachers and staff and would jeopardize Mr. Sample's relationships and goodwill that he's worked to build. Additionally, it increases his risk of a lawsuit if Ms. Lin or others lose their job and decide to sue Mr. Sample or the school district. And it reduces student access to software. Option 3, the intermediate approach. The pros is that working collaboratively with all stakeholders to solve a copyright violations gives everybody a say in finding a solution. Educating stakeholders on the legal and ethical considerations and gives them a voice in creating the policies. It avoids additional financial costs, and it helps build trust and goodwill with all of the stakeholders. The cons is that it could potentially create tension with the few people that were involved in copying the software, and the school loses access to that software and technology that benefits students. It will cost additional money to purchase more. And it's time intensive to conduct new training and write new policies that are written collaboratively with all the stakeholders. So let's talk about what our best choice is. I believe that Mr. Sample's best choice is the intermediate action, that he should work collaboratively to uninstall the duplicated software, educate stakeholders about copyright laws, and develop policies for future use and future fundraising events. The rationale is that this is he's going to have to explain to Ms. Lin and individuals involved that the school just simply has to comply with the law, and that ethically we have a responsibility to do so. He will have copyright training for all of the staff at the next professional development that will help educate them about what constitutes a violation and how to maintain within the law. And He can ask the school staff involved to help evaluate and draft new policies regarding copyright laws that can be included in the school acceptable use policy, giving the stakeholders a say in collaboratively finding solutions. He can ask Miss Evans, the parent-teacher organization president, to form a fundraising committee to explore options for a third event. And he can engage all of the stakeholders to take action, become more educated, and work collaboratively, which is mutually beneficial to the well-being of all parties. Section 9, the implementation, the plan. First needs to inform Ms. Lynn that as a school, we have to legally and ethically comply with the law. There's just no way around it. Then Mr. Sample is going to have to ask Ms. Lynn to work with the stakeholders involved to uninstall the software. Anybody that she allowed a duplicated CD, she'll have to ask and work with them to uninstall those and educate them that per our policies, we just have to comply with the law. Mr. Sample will work collaboratively with the school staff to develop copyright training for the staff so that everyone in the school can be educated about the issues. Mr. Sample can also work collaboratively to develop those policies and procedures that can be distributed and posted in classes outlining copyright law and acceptable to use. So not only are there reminders for teachers, but we're educating students as well. And we can ask Ms. Evans to work with the PTO organization to organize an additional fundraising event to purchase new software licenses. And we can request the copyright policy revision or inclusion in the district policies and the school acceptable use policy. Additional considerations. We have to assume that all stakeholders involved are rational people who are going to respect the law and the request of their administrator. I don't believe that this will become a larger issue if Mr. Sample just simply approaches them and speaks rationally. Additionally, I don't believe that this is a nefarious criminal activity that warrants notification of the school superintendent or other district officials, which would create tension among the staff. I believe that all individuals involved can work to handle the issue internally, and it's more likely about a lack of education than blatant disregard for the law. Failure to comply with the proposed plan, however, and its implementation will result in a written reprimand and referral to the appropriate district officials. And we should, as a school, continue to seek funding and grant opportunities, legally acquire alternative software options, and enlist the help of all stakeholders to brainstorm creative solutions for the well-being of all students. So that is my plan as Mr. Sample for how I would address this potential copyright violation to comply with the law and maintain the goodwill and relationships of my staff and community stakeholders. Thank you.